And boom. All right. Chat. Welcome. Hi. Welcome to the Malice Experience. As always, I am Mr. Malice. Below me, where he kind of likes to be, is, Mystic. Mystic. Um, and we have with us today. Tell me if I'm pronouncing the last part of your name correctly, because I think I keep screwing it up. It's Anima Noira?
Nora or Noara, if you want to be French. But people mess up my name all the time.
I apologize. I didn't
Call
mean
me
to add to
Nora.
that list.
Okay.
Nora? Okay. All right. So that's just going to simplify things. All right. So we actually met Nora last week. She was in the chat. You guys remember? And had a lot of good things to kind of add to the subject that we were talking about, like, the whole idea of the whole occult kind of like community unifying, things like that. Um, things dealing with Balg and things like that. And so I think what we kind of want to do is we kind of want to kind of do a deep dive kind of like into that and, pick Nora's brain here a little bit on like what it is that she's got going on and, everything like that. So Nora, tell us, so just tell everybody about yourself. Like, what do you do? Like, as far as like the occult's concerned, like, all of this.
Well, here's the thing, and I recently told this to someone who called me a priestess or true initiate or some other flowery titles. I'm a housewife, that's what I do. That's my glorious occupation.
A hard job.
I mean,
The
yeah. I
best
mean, I
one.
I could imagine. I mean, I wouldn't know firsthand, uh, but yeah, I could imagine. So with I watched a few of your YouTube videos, and I've also been in a couple of your lives. So where does your journey with the occult kind of start?
Oh, it starts like right there when I was born. When I was a teenager, I found a horoscope of not only my birth chart, because my father was an astrologer, but of my conception. So my journey, as outrageous as it sounds, in this life, it probably starts with a ritualistic conception by my father, who was an occultist. My mother likely didn't really know what's going on. And my father's bloodline was actually targeted for, certain experimentation that was going on since World War II, all kinds of weird ass secret projects. Um, so that's kind of the family background. And then if I were to answer this the way I feel it to be true, then the journey in the occult doesn't just start in this life. It's something that we carry on from before, and that's why everybody has this feeling of homecoming or like a homing instinct, because we have done this before.
Hmm. I could agree with that. I have nothing like that, but like my first memory is clear. Is actually being outside of my body. I was about like 6. Like I was looking behind myself, like the back of my head, into myself. Is my first memory that I can clearly
I had
remember.
that one time when I had a really bad flu. It was the winter, and somehow I passed out. I fell asleep, and I still had all those winter sweaters on, and it
Mm-hmm.
was inside of the house. So I think I get like badly overheated on
Mm-hmm.
top of being feverish, and there I dissociated from my body, and I remember looking at myself from above with this feeling of like slight embarrassment, and then I realized, oh, the fuck, that's your body actually, and you might want to go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized, like, we are not the body, like the soul actually considers the body to be a bit of like a shameful thing, like a vehicle. Like, oh my god, what's that thing? That's not me.
Mm-mm-mm. I'll be looking
True.
to find out who's got a nicer car than me now. Great. My all of my first experiences like that are vertigo related. Like it's that moment of wait a minute, I've felt this before, seen this before, heard this before, and it's not something that would be normal to hear, or see. But I've never had an out of body experience, unfortunately. I would like to. Well, anyway.
I had a lot of out of time experiences like skipping a day or, like past, present, future, just oddly merging, deja vu, jumping timelines. Just time and space are really just, two aspects of the same thing. And I guess I've had these experiences always, but when I was younger, I would just like repress it and forget about it. But now that I'm like more conscious of it and more accepting, I remember way more of this stuff when it happens
Mhm.
because I don't need to repress the fuck out of it to keep myself feeling sane. So I'm like, okay, well, I just skipped a day. I think I was behind the veil with the fairies, and time was flowing differently there.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever done that.
I think it happens on some places more than on other places, and also like at certain times during the year to
Mhm.
certain people.
I don't
True.
think I would know if that was occurring at this point. Um I've been interested in and involved in occult things for a very long time, but it's always been the surface scratching until, the last 5 years or so. So I think a lot of experiences I have now, I'm just now trying to figure out what they're called, what they were, and it's pretty eye opening. So, being able to explain them and feel them and quantify them is something I haven't figured out yet, but is exciting to hear about.
Well, it's always very encouraging when you see that you're not the only one who has been through this and that like it actually has a name and there are others. Perhaps sometimes it's like to a fault because it becomes a fad and then like everybody picks up on some concepts, whether it's like indigo children or twin flames, or it's always that one thing that goes on in the spiritual community and it changes every year, and every time it becomes popular enough, somebody tries to capitalize on it and like sell the workshops and the advice, and it always comes and goes in waves. But the true gnosis, what I found out, is oftentimes not very sellable. It's the stuff that people don't want to hear.
Hmm. So when you were in here in the chat last week, we were talking about kind of like the occult unification kind of thing, and we were talking about coetting and Balg and all of that, and ways that we could prevent something like that from happening again within the community. Somebody kind of taking advantage of people in the way that threats that made on people's lives by him. Um, but where does kind of like your connection begin and end Balg wedding?
So I've been frequenting these circles since maybe 2012. I got more directly involved as an author in 2014. I almost got to the point where they would promote and sell my services, but because of the infamous drug bust happened in, I believe, late 2014, I backed off because I was concerned for my reputation and what would come out of that, uh, that arrest. And I actually cut the ties to the whole left hand path community. Was just like swimming in different waters. But here's the thing, we are all connected energetically, and I believe also through past lives. So when you're meant to be drawn into a certain epicenter, a certain vortex, even though you like know that there's something fishy about it, that this is not going to go well, you still end up being drawn there. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's like some timelines just have too much magnetism for them for you to avoid it. So a few years later, I was I was drawn back, and it's yeah. So they published my essay and did a few interviews, and I got like involved, like magical collaboration with the people, or just personal friendships, stuff like that.
And did you have like a connection directly with Coetting or no? Did you actually speak to him or?
Uh, Much more than that.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I guess we don't have to go down that road. Uh, um, so, well, I have very little experience, like, or understanding within the whole circle of people that were involved with Balg, like prior existence of Balg, right? Like I mentioned before, I'm fairly new to kind
It
of
was
like
it
the.
was the first it was the first like purely commercial, highly ambitious project in the left-hand path waters. I think that's
Hmm.
something that we would all agree upon, that nobody before has been using like actual business tactics and aggressive
Hmm.
marketing to really like push the revenue, get lots of people on board, get the biggest channel, biggest following, biggest. That was always the selling point. It was you would often refer to it as an empire, in like warfare terms. And
Hmm.
that's basically right there. That's basically right there. Calls it an empire. What are the empires? They are gained through not unification,
Hmm.
diplomacy, but through conquest. So that's sort of what it has been, essentially one man show, with the end goal, I guess, to be the biggest, greatest ever. And then what follows from there is, when you take this whole like warfare, conquering aspect of it, then what else follows from there? It means you either have to co-opt or destroy those who uh, you know
Hmm.
stand aside or against you, and
Right.
such. And then I think if people gave more thought to the most surface level verbiage, the words that have been being used there, they would make all the connections. And unfortunately, it's now coming to surface to more attention that, like, the calls for violence, the misogyny, this glorification of bloodlust, it's all been there. It's all been published for years, it's all been written about. For some reason, people just maybe didn't consider it anything more than edgelord stuff.
Hmm.
um, but there's been people already, about 2 years ago, there was some documentary made on YouTube where the author, who I believe is like an observer from the outside, they made the exact same conclusions, like where up to. And now we are at a point where a lot is coming out, like about all kinds of you know not cool behaviors. And when you look into the past, the writing has been on the wall ever
Hmm.
since. It's just you haven't seen it for what it is. I would have a hard time think about any other occult author who has used words such as rape as titles for their essays. The infamous pamphlet "Rape of the Archangels."
Hmm.
Look it up.
Yeah, I've not heard of that. So that's an
And
actual thing.
I'm
that's
already
the thing,
googling.
most people who come across this whole story, they have never read any of the material that's been in circulation for years, which all of the insiders, everybody pretty much knew, who is Archelaus Baron, aka Drill Sergeant 666. The pamphlets that have been written for like Temple of Blood and similar uh, organizations, terrorist manuals, um, in Rape of the Archangels, he basically suggests that a reasonable, desirable form of empowerment for the black magician is actually perpetrating rape on a woman. And
That's like one of those things. Like, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
that's just a few of those like points that I've been recently connecting, even like for myself as a part of like my own story and experience, just putting together the personal, the collective, the societal. And I would like to connect these points with the movie that I'm working on, because the discussion has always been either insider drama, like who did what to whom, and then the broad public joined with the scandal that was covered
Mm-hmm.
by the BBC. But there is a whole space between those two things. Like
Mm-hmm.
how do you actually connect it? And I believe that the connection is right there, and it's pretty solid, just hasn't been made before.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think. I mean, I'm honestly like very. There are very few things in this world that leave me at a loss of words. I guess this is one of those times where I'm kind of at a loss for words. There's a lot surrounding this that I'm unaware of, that I'm not privy to. Um, I mean, what I do know, what I have seen, has been given to me or passed to me. Bonnie or Curtis, things like that, things that kind of like happen behind the curtain, so to speak. Things that just kind of disgusted to say that I actually know. But I think you know it's kind of important to have these kind of discussions, not from a drama perspective, not talking about the drama in and of itself, but rather what went wrong where.
Dude, that's $1 million question, and I guess you could answer it for each one person involved who like ended up spreading terror upon their brothers and sisters. I guess something went wrong in their lives, but you know what? A whole lot of stuff went wrong in my life too when I was a child, and I didn't make those same choices. I didn't become a drug addict. I don't go around passing death threats to people. I don't screw them over in
Mm-hmm.
business. you know So, what exactly went wrong? I think a whole lot of stuff went wrong for a whole lot of people. Just some of them decided that it's better to be the bully than the victim. And that's how we came to create this kind of toxic, black magical, I wouldn't even call it community, because that
Mm-hmm.
sort of fits the purpose. I would say it's like a bully culture, where I have seen people canceled over, especially in recent years, made up allegations of sexual harassment. Like half a dozen people, not two or three of them, but many. And then, the truth always comes out eventually in the end, but like people's lives have been destroyed. And then when there is like an actual victim, of which there are plenty, because the whole subculture is incredibly like misogynistic, referring to women as like toys and slaves, and the whole black magic angle on it. When they come out, they are freaking bullied into silence by the exact same people. So it's a true reflection of everything that is wrong with society at large, and like we embody it as this microcosm where it seemed to be, at least until now, that the most wicked ones, they always climb to the top
Mm-hmm.
using brute force, basically, uh, gang tactics. So it's not the true priesthood. It's not the people who care, who just wanna lead others, um, but like as spiritual leaderships, it's those who are out there for power grab, for fame, fortune. One of the things that Become a Living God did plentiful was show people that this can be lucrative, that you can actually charge $400 for a ritual, that people are gonna pay $200 for a grimoire, which has been printed in China for for 10, $15, that you can sign on people for a group ritual, which you only perform it once, but you charge 30, 60, 100 people for it. And then, do the math on it. Um, they have shown people that, you know, social clout and fame is something to use as a power currency that you can corrupt people with easily. So we have actually become a perfect microcosm of everything that's wrong with the society at large. Started to play the exact same power games, actually including some of the exact same lines like, I'll make sure you'll never work in this town.
Mm-hmm.
That's some Harvey Weinstein lines right there
Mhm.
that, you know, I may have done some modeling, but being here as I am, I don't see myself as a Hollywood actress needing to suck dick on the casting couch to make it to be allowed among the, somebody has recently called them the cool kids, you know, the club. That's not what we should be about, but that's what we have sort of become, and what has it devolved into. Social media plays a role in it, but I wouldn't put the blame on social media at all, because social media has given us all these tremendous, technologies and ways to connect with brothers and sisters all around the world. Like, it has profoundly transformed the left hand path for better, I think, because before the internet we were so isolated. And like with the internet, we are actually not alone. We can even practice together. So I think social media in our case was a total blessing, but the
Mm-hmm.
commercialization was disastrous. And we need
Right.
to step back from that and like go back to the roots a bit, because this shouldn't be about who has the biggest channel, who has most followers on Instagram, who can get most pussy by promoting them on their channel, canceling people with
Mm-hmm.
allegations of sexual harassment. This is not fucking Hollywood, but that's what we become, including, so you start dating someone and you get this qualification, you suddenly become a witch, a powerful occultist, just by dating some dude who has the clout. That's typical Hollywood move. That's what you do. Like, you bet some producer, some photographer, and they make you, so to speak. And I've seen this happen in the past few years. So then I guess, like, what does it matter what credentials you have, how long have you been practicing, how long have you been doing it professionally, when anybody can come out and become a superstar in 1 year and have like zero background whatsoever, and people gonna buy it just because of the you know just because of the hype.
Yeah. Wow. It's just like that is just like so fucking disheartening. Like I'm not even kidding. Like everything like you're saying, it's just like Jesus Christ. I mean,
I don't think that many would disagree with me, like even those who may stand like on the other side of the fence. I think even they have observed the same, and maybe worse, because when you're surrounded by the snakes, because you're a
mhm,
snake, and you will experience a lot more of that dark side.
mhm. I mean, I think I just think that like so for example, like when it comes to rituals and shit like that, I've said this many times on my channel and I'll repeat it. I don't for magical work. I don't charge. I will not charge for magical work, and that's something I grabbed from my mother. My mother always told me that if you have the ability to do something that somebody else does not have the ability to do, if you are given the gift is something that's given to you for free, and therefore you have a responsibility to, in turn, give that gift to other people for free.
I think
And
that this old wisdom has been left behind, and there is certainly something to it. It's a spiritual service. It's a ministry. It's priesthood. And the business should exist too. I don't have a problem with it. A lot of people are laity. They don't want to master this stuff. They will never
mhm,
want to, but say they are fighting off an enemy curse that somebody placed on them or paid somebody to do on them. They should be able to look up some kind of professional
Mm-hmm.
spiritualists to serve them. But now that we have all become professionals and everybody is charging and everybody is building their social cloud, haven't we lost access to spirituality by doing this?
Well, when you're focusing on the business, so this is the thing. So I agree with you to a point that I think that people that do charge, I mean, you have a right as an individual to charge for whatever the fuck you want to charge for, right? Doesn't matter. Um, but my personal opinion, the way that I personally look at it, if I am able to do something to help another person, so for example, curses, I won't do curses. I can do curses, I won't. Right? Like I always tell people in my chat, like if they're going to do curses, if you're going to do curses, that's your fucking prerogative. I'm not saying you're a bad person for doing it. Me personally, I won't. I've done them before, okay? And I don't want that fucking karma. I don't want that fucking karma. Um and other people in the community have harped on me about that. It's like, well, how can you consider yourself left-hand path if you don't do,
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's a great point. I have been not ridiculed, but a lot of people have caught up, to the fact that I speak a lot about past lives and karma, and this is definitely not common in the left-hand path. It's actually quite rare, but that's one of our major blind spots. Like, do you really think that you can just go around doing your edgelord thing, freaking death cursing people because they wrote a bad review on you on Facebook, and that like this is how the world rolls? It insults my intelligence more than my like spiritual beliefs and practices, because anybody who has two brain cells, who gives it honest thought, must realize that magic creates consequences,
mm-hmm,
and that there is a line that magic basically cannot cross for you just by using brute force or forging the most powerful alliances with the most powerful spirits. And people just seem to be on some kind of power trip where they don't really ask themselves these questions.
mm-hmm. I mean, I think once you put money into it, like that's where things start to get fucked up. Because once people
Follow
realize
the money.
that, hmm,
Follow the money, as they say.
Follow
exactly.
the
Like
money.
once you mix money into spirituality,
See,
it go ahead, Mystic.
I was gonna say for me, I agree. I think chart like everybody does have the right and should be able to choose for themselves how they use their service and the energy that it takes out of them, and all that stuff. Right, that's all great. For me, it's always been about the difference between a service and a commodity or an item or a specific thing. It's really nice to go by. I'm gonna sound so unicorn vomit witchy here, soaps and lotions and things that people have made with their intent, and those things to me are things that I would feel comfortable charging or paying for. But for a service, I can't imagine myself paying for a service from somebody. I would be, and this is a personal thing, I would like, okay, well, I need to do whatever it takes for me to get the knowledge, for me to get the experience, to understand how this works. Because if the magic is going to work for me, then I need to be the one doing it, because it's my magic, it's my manifestation, it's my intent, it's my process.
Yeah, I,
And
I totally I totally agree. We are here for empowerment. If we are practitioners, then we should be practitioners. But then there's the consumerist culture, which is
Mhm.
all everywhere around us, and that just tells you that you can take the shortcut. You can just dash out a few dollars and you can buy shit. So these promises where people can just subscribe to ritual service like you would subscribe to a YouTube channel, credit card accepted and all that, and you will get these spiritual boons every month delivered right to your doorstep. Like, come on, man. This promise is just tempting. Of course it's
Mm-hmm.
tempting.
I think people miss the point though. So here's so it goes back to kind of like what one of the things I mentioned in your chat on your live, the one, is that, so for example, I work with Baphomet like almost exclusively, um, and it's a situation where I don't go to Baphomet when I want something. Like I don't go. People have this an unbelievable misconception that, like, and everybody talks about it. Work with this demon, work with this spirit, work with this entity. If you want this, do this. If you want that, do this. It's like, well, hold on a second. It's like you're going all over the spiritual circle, asking every motherfucker
Shopping.
you can.
They're going
Yeah,
shopping.
exactly. Asking for everything you fucking want. What are you giving back? A glass of wine? A fruit? A goddamn apple? Like,
That's the consumerist culture. You don't have to give anything back. You just sign on credit, mortgage, 30 years, deal with the devil. You can have it all, man. You can fucking have it all. There's no cost hidden, no small
mm-hmm.
print.
But see that's the thing. That's the thing that fucking bothers me, because the thing is what people are missing is that, yes, a lot of these entities probably are willing to work with you. And one of the things I always keep telling people is, like, we're using new names for old entities. Like, these things have existed long before, like, any books we've ever fucking written. Okay. So the thing, so the things that we're calling on, we're calling on old energies, with just new names. That's all we're doing. Right? We're providing kind of new descriptions to things that have existed long before we even roamed this fucking planet. And you're talking about things that the biggest thing that you can give back is time, dedication, work, and understand the entity that you're working with. The gifts or the things that you need in your life will come to you naturally with the work that you put in. But this concept, like, everybody, it just bothers me so much, like, to no end, that everybody keeps doing. Well, work with King Paimon if you want this. Work with Lilith if you want this. Work with Lucifer if you want this. It's like, wait,
That's
stop.
not how it works.
It's not how it works. It's not how it functions. Like, what are you doing?
It is straight up deluded, and I kind of find it hilarious because almost any one spirit can give you all kinds of things or lead you to them.
Mm-hmm.
All paths lead to Rome. There is no need for this, for this salad bar type of shopping. They can give you all kinds of things. I have rarely had a spirit like decline some kind of request. They can say that it's outside of their dominion, but if they are your patron deity, you really almost even just need one, just like one
Mm-hmm.
current. You don't need to catch them all. It's not Pokemon. It's not a card collecting game.
We need that on a T-shirt for real.
We do.
That is a T-shirt. Trademark it. That will make some money. I guarantee it.
Yeah, you should make a merchandise line, and I should too. I just don't know if anybody would consider my occult jokes funny or not.
That was good, though.
I'm
That was
almost
good.
ashamed. I'm almost ashamed that I like don't know the whole Goetia. I don't need to catch them all.
That would be like Diemon. How to catch them all.
You have to design a Pokeball for them.
Oh yeah, with like a pentagram
Yeah.
in the front of it and stuff. Right? Yeah, there you go.
But it's got to be
Make it-
different enough that it's not copyright infringement, right? We can do
I think
this.
making it black and white and putting a pentagram on it would probably be enough.
Yeah, point taken.
No, I mean, it's just there's literally like two deities I work with, like almost exclusively Baphomet and then Hel. So within Norse paganism. So a lot of people kind of misunderstand me, like with the way that I go at things. I keep telling people I'm a philosophical Satanist. Then the only thing that they hear in that is Satanist, and they're like, "Well, you worship the devil." It's like,
Oh,
okay, let me repeat.
what you are is actually a theurgic or high magic Satanist. You don't seek the lower magic or like the powers over circumstances and other people. You seek the path of inner work,
Mhm.
and that is very rare on the Latin path. It's rare to the point where basically theurgy and higher magic could be identified with the right hand path, whereas we would be, the old fame and fortune selling the soul to the devil. But I also think that this is changing, and it will become, there will be more crossover and more unity and uh, less dementia on both sides of the spectrum.
Well, it's one of the reasons I started the Order of Baphomet. The Order of Baphomet is specifically to show people that don't worry about your car, don't worry about your house, Worry about your fucking bank account. Worry about you inside of yourself. Because if you are balanced, if you are okay inside of yourself, inside of your own skin, then everything else around you just kind of begins to
And
fall in
that's
place.
such a perfect message, because we've gotten to the point where you've got these stars, or rather starlets, having fucking emotional meltdowns on live streams, high as fuck,
Mm-hmm.
sweaty, whatever drama. Where is the mastery? Where is the fucking mastery? Have we lost our minds altogether? Like, is magic just about subjugating women, conjuring up riches, screwing people over, casting glamour? And then you see that these people are actually not happy. They live in internal hell. Like, their lives are hell. They don't have mental health. They don't have peace. They don't sleep well. They don't like what they see in the mirror when they wake up and go to the bathroom.
No, I
and
agree.
and the left hand path just has to come to terms you know with the path that we have been on for the last few years, or perhaps hundreds of years. It just hasn't brought us true inner fulfillment, so we gotta revive it. And perhaps we need even a whole new left hand path, because it's just become more deranged and debauched,
Well,
even just throughout the time that I have been involved in it, which is not such a long time. And the old schoolers, I think, would tell you the same.
people fall into the idea with the left hand path that it's all demons and devils and everything that the church will sit there and tell you that is evil. And I completely disagree. So I describe the left hand path like this. So in life, we have day and we have night. And in the day, let's say, I don't know, you live in the country. Out in the back, there's an open field, and there's a beautiful flower in the middle of that field. You go out and you see that flower, and you enjoy seeing that flower, and that flower brings you happiness when you can see it. You don't become angry at the night because the night takes away the light for you to be able to see the flower. You understand that the night brings other benefits to you, such as generation, healing, rest, recuperation of the mind, recuperation of the spirit. Night has its place. The left hand path, though, some of the forces that we may work with might be considered darker in nature, is merely an understanding that you cannot have the light without the darkness. They both exist simultaneously. And as someone in the left hand path, we are not solely focused on only the darkness or only the light, but we understand that both exist and we work within both.
Yes, and here's the thing: darkness does not equal evil or immorality or just social transgression. That's not what it is at all. There's negative magic and positive magic, which does not equal black and white magic, which does not equal the right hand path and the left hand path. And like, in the end, both would lead to the same end goal, same end result.
And this is kind of where the whole concept for me for like kind of like an overall unification within the occult community kind of comes about.
Oh, it's more than that. I believe that what you're like downloading is actually historic. It's the entire changing of the eras. It's Lucifer himself, being reborn and taking on new forms and new aspects. And a lot of Luciferians have been getting these same downloads about like unity and going beyond black and white.
Hmm. It's necessary.
But funny enough, I did perform a ritual with Eric Coating with black and white candles, which he created himself, and it was exactly about this, about going beyond black and white. 3 black candles,
Hmm.
3 white candles. You can choose whichever, because it leads to the same result.
Hmm.
So people, even though they've become like corrupt and possibly even insane, they still have the gnosis. They get the downloads. They just like cannot perhaps manifest anything reasonable out of
Hmm.
it. Even the deranged and the insane, if they are true practitioners, then something is flowing through them. It's just the form, how it's flowing, and their actions, which then distorts it.
Hmm. Exactly. And the thing is it's extremely important that we begin to kind of understand that it is necessary for us to kind of come together to some degree, to some level. I keep saying this. If we don't start coming together with the things that I'm seeing, the left hand path is going to be a joke in the next
Oh,
5 years.
it is a joke already. Like we are in the middle of a dumpster fire that is a train wreck that is drowning.
Damn.
You can see that.
No, like seriously, no, I wake up, I want to write some essay, make some art, like do some priesthood, some actual rituals, and what do I wake up to? New allegations that I have been stalking men online with naked pictures. Like, come on, like this is ridiculous on a whole nother level. Let's just keep my personal honor and reputation out of it. Since when did the left-hand path become so concerned about women's naked bodies and men seeing them? Like, aren't we supposed to be the liberated ones?
Yeah. I
Aren't,
mean,
aren't all these badass black magicians so powerful that they shouldn't be feeling victimized by seeing a naked woman? Like, does any of this make any fucking sense anymore?
no, it doesn't. I mean, if you go back to, fuck, just go back to the '60s with LaVeyan Satanism. I mean, that's like the perfect example. I mean, a naked woman on the altar was like a staple piece, in his rituals.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I've been an altar in like old school satanic rituals, and it's a great honor actually to be chosen as the altar because you represent the earth and the divine feminine, and you are being worshipped. You're not being
Mm-hmm.
defiled. You
Mm-hmm.
are being worshipped in the
Exactly.
true blackness.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Which is why it was funny when somebody, particular YouTuber, decided to say that apparently the spirit of Anton LaVey attacked her. Oh, that was funny.
So was this one of the recently famous claims of astral rape? Because that's apparently also a new thing in the Latin path community.
um.
There is a lot of there's a lot of
Oh.
people who are not getting any action, and then
Yeah. Then
they
apparently, spirits are hard up for him. Apparently.
yeah.
Apparently Elvis is their boyfriend, and apparently Jesus loves them like more than just a child.
Well, I mean, I wish them all the fun that they're having. They just maybe like shouldn't be dragging other practitioners into it
Right? Right?
because it just diminishes the value of words and of our own, uh, you know, brain power when
Mm-hmm.
somebody starts to claim that you can actually like rape a woman online or astrally. Then like, where does that leave the actual victims?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No,
And
that is the exact point I've made.
since when this has become a competition in victim card flashing anyway?
Shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. I mean, I
As
have
as
my I have
Latin
my
pathers,
traumas.
we should be like laughing at anyone who is trying to pull the victim and pity and sympathy card because we are supposed to be the lone wolves. We are supposed to be the badasses and the rebels, and yet this is what we have devolved into. Everybody is just posting what is their diagnosis, like what they're a victim of, and they are competing among one another.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your trauma? What is your label? Like, who did you wrong? What does the world owe you? How have you been victimized? What minority are you a part of?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't
It
think this has anything to do with the left hand path. Like that actually it kind of in my personal feel this goes directly like in opposition to what the left-hand path has always been.
Mm-hmm.
That pandering to the majority and um, vying for social acceptance. That's the opposite of what we have always been.
I mean, there are people that actually get upset with me, Mystic, for saying that I personally don't give a shit what people think about me. Like,
Oh, you
I mean,
shouldn't. You shouldn't. Like that's one more thing that I found super funny. Since where do all these black magicians care that people think that they are good people? And like, okay, well, you care how people view you, well, then you cannot at the same time be totally edgy and evil. Come on, you gotta take sides. You can't have it both. Either you are the super powerful black magician tyrant who's just out there for a power grab, turn
mhm.
high and go out with a bang, desperado style, or you are the simp who is trying to profit off of their little social clout of being victimized and who just wants to be nice to everyone and show to everyone how much they are healing and how much they are likable and just this good person. But when people, and I've been seeing this a lot lately, when they try to combine these two things, that's when
Mhm.
it becomes really ridiculous. And that's
Does
how we have ended at this curious crossroads where we got actual murders inspired by actual writings, which have been there for 100 years. And we've got an actual author who's, bragged about taking humans' lives, promoting all kinds of violence, and they cannot decide if they are the good guy or not. And
I
that
think
just leaves everybody confused.
yeah, so just to clarify, so I mean, I do believe that mental health is a thing, and I do believe that people need to take care of their mental health, but I don't believe that um it's and I do believe that your personal workings within whatever spiritual path you so choose, left hand path or otherwise, can be something that can help people with mental health issues.
Oh, it should.
Uh,
It should.
but I do see like there are people out there that are using mental health as a way to try to get to get more likes, to get more follows, to get to move up on a
Or,
on a rung
or
on a ladder.
yeah. Or worse than that, they also use this lingo, this jargon, this slang that they have learned. They like use it to cancel others.
Hmm.
I have been called a dangerous female predator, toxic, stalker, blackmailer, extortionist, domestic abuser, and the list goes on and on.
Hmm.
It goes from just like slander and gossip to like accusing people of actual crimes, actual
Hmm.
criminal behavior.
Hmm.
Like hilariously enough, here we are talking about all this, and 3 months ago there was this alleged letter passed around in all the occult groups, which accuses me of everything under the sun, from being unfaithful, cheater, whatever, to plotting to human sacrifice my ex-husband, uh, which is kind of a hard claim to make. Like, how would a woman actually do it to the man? So the plot twist is I would bully him through horrible domestic abuse into suicide so that he would become my perfect sacrifice.
Sounds very well thought out.
It wasn't very well thought out. He shitted it out when he was being threatened and blackmailed, threatened by fucking prison time, lest he produces any dirt that he has on me under the instruction of Eric Coating, actually.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of understand why people in the left-hand path kind of stayed underground for so long to avoid shit like this.
Well, we would stay underground these days to avoid each other, not the state and the church, but to avoid the other left-hand pathers. And I've been doing just that, for the longest time. I just wasn't publishing anything in English. I wasn't going on shows. I was just laying low, keeping my head down. And guess what? I come to the US, I start publishing, people start raving for my stuff, sharing it, it's everywhere. And just as this happened, all this freaking slanderous bullshit appears. So what does it tell you? It appears because I became relevant.
mhm,
Nobody freaking cares about women and children and victims. Nobody
mhm,
cares about addressing the evils and injustices of this world. Somebody just feels threatened by a witty, hot chick appearing on the scene. It's high school bullshit. It's high school lunch politics. This is actually what Belial has called it to me. Sit at your table alone.
mhm.
Back the high school lunch politics.
Yeah,
Because that's not what we are here for. He
mhm.
told me, remind the people, why did they come to the left-hand path?
Well, I mean, it goes into like, one of the reasons why, I went into it was to find balance. It was the thing that to me that called to me and said that there's balance here. Like everything else seems so overly judgmental about you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way. Like when I first started down like kind of like paganism in general, I started out, as I think a lot of people did, I started out in Wicca. Yeah, I
Me
mean,
too.
you know, and then Wicca was the first one to become political, as
Yes.
far as like, they have kind of like its hierarchy and its rules and how things should be done and how things shouldn't be done. And here's the funny thing, no offense to any Wiccans out there, but most of the things that are kind of cropping up now with Wicca are pretty much taken directly from the craft. Like somebody watched that fucking movie and said, hey, this would work. And that's what you're doing. Like, you don't buy the book, just watch the fucking movie. Like, there you go. That is what you're doing. You know, and then it gets enforced. It gets enforced, and then everybody kind of just turns into a fucking frenzy, and everybody's saying, "Yeah, you got to do it this way." It's like, dude, that was a fucking movie. It's like, oh, and then I'm seeing it now here. The same fucking thing with the left hand path is like everybody's cropping up, and like one of the reasons why all of us joined like an alternative spiritual path was because we were so tired of being told what we can and cannot do in our spiritual lives and our own lives.
Or being told who can you associate with,
Uh-huh.
who cannot you associate with, and it's the exact same politics that are now popping
Uh-huh.
up.
Exactly. And it's what needs to stop. It needs to stop, which is why again I'm going into, I'm trying to push for that unification, because the thing is like we're just turning into a big fucking joke. That's what we're turning into. You tell somebody like, "Hey, I'm left-hand path." It's just a fucking giggle now. It's not, "Oh, really? What's that about?" It's like, "Wow, you're a fucking idiot." And you know, it's like if you're okay being called a fucking idiot because, of your spiritual beliefs, then all the power to you, but I'm not. I'm not okay with that. And there's so much to learn in what we're doing. There's so much to share in what we're doing. With each of us individually can bring so much to the table. Need to, you know, fucking come together. Exactly, Behemoth X. Exactly. Welcome, welcome. He says, do your own thing, but we can respect each other. Exactly, exactly. Respect the differences between each other, but we can still, be able to work together. on some level.
it it I don't think this is really about different philosophies or practices. It's just about bringing back some basic core level values of, I would almost say human rights, and civility, because it's degraded to the point where like people are actually considering actual charges because like actual criminal behavior is going around. So if we can step, one step above that level, then we'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop freaking cursing everyone, stop threatening everyone, stop trying to ruin people's lives because they stepped on your toe, stop this whole warfare murderous rampage that has taken over Latin Path community, and then we can build something better on those ashes. But my personal view of this is that you cannot acquiesce and rational and reason with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people actually are too corrupt to be ever redeemed and rehabilitated. And if they have taken on leadership positions, not saying we gotta overthrow them, because that's not really how it works, but we gotta provide enough of a powerful alternative so that they are at least like sidelined.
Mm-hmm.
They're at least not seen as those who represent us, especially for, the general public and the rest of the society. And that
I
has
mean,
become a bit of a problem. Also because those who seek the fame, of course, are the corrupt ones. There's like a lot of authors who have been always in the shadows, but with the advent of internet and social media, the fame currency has become a very powerful currency. And then when you can back up those claims by buying tens of thousands of fans, which, well, let's call it, that's what Become a Living God did already years ago. Everybody knew it. Everybody who happened to be an insider to like online marketing, we all seen it. We all seen that half of their fan base is allegedly located in India. So that's building something on lies. How does that serve us? Why would anybody need to convince the rest of the world that they have 80,000 followers when they have maybe a half of it? And then start attacking all the other authors who actually have the actual audience and trying to co-opt them, or if not, then like destroy them.
I don't think the left-hand path was ever designed to really
Be public like this.
will it be public like this and have like groups so large. Like
I
first and
absolutely
foremost,
agree.
I'm a solitary practitioner. I have no problem working with other people on occasion, but generally speaking, it's me, just me, my altar, and my thoughts and my energy flowing through that altar. Um, and I don't need other people, to do that. I help who can be helped, and teach who want the people that want to learn, and that's it. Like it's not designed, um, to be public, or this public, or have extremely large groups under, you know, one individual.
I would almost say that it's true for any spiritual path, because look what has happened to the mega churches. Look what happens whenever there
Mhm.
is like an extremely successful preacher and a church. It all becomes about the fame, clout, money, freaking sexual harassment and stuff. All of it. And we have become, unfortunately no better once we have, adopted the same goals and tactics. And that's something that the left-hand path really needs to look at. Like, how exactly are we now different and better than the Christians? Because I will tell you, we're not.
I mean, I think many of us are, but
Oh,
that's the point of this.
individuals. Sure.
Yeah, but that's the point of this. Like this channel started on the basis of just calling people out that were literally calling for violence against people that were witches of any kind. Like it didn't matter if you were a left hand path or you're a Wiccan or whatever. Like the entire purpose of like when this channel started was to call those types of people out, to show that these people exist and this is what they're trying. The John Ramirez's of the world, right? And those are dangerous individuals. Like John Ramirez, like has actually said, gone out and said, like, hey, it's the time for like spiritual battle is over. It's time to take on the armor of Christ and actually go in after these people. And it's like, wow, all right, cool. Um, so
Well, here's the thing though, like we are so hell-bent on attacking and destroying one another in the left-hand path that how are we exactly going to defend ourselves against like an external enemy? We are so caught up with our internal warfare, with the inner corruption of the Black Order, that if we were to be attacked from the outside, I'm just wondering what would happen. I don't even think many people are registering the outside
most people
anymore.
aren't. Most people aren't looking at the outside,
No,
and
no,
it's
they
like
are not.
what like Behemoth says. He says maybe we aren't, but the individual we can. You know, and then that's true. It's the thing is that's the whole basis of this is the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you. The reason I want to have a conversation with everyone, on the left hand path. Behemoth. I want to interview you too, but very hard man to get a hold of. um, but the idea here is that there has to be some level of like common understanding between us. Like we have to support each other to some degree, and we have to weed out, the bullshit. We have to weed it out. It's our responsibility to
Of course,
stop the shit from escalating to where it escalates to.
no, nobody is going to do that for us. There won't be any investigative journalists. There won't be anyone coming from the outside to clean the house. It's our house, and it's the beds that we have made here, and we're going to lie in them. And perhaps the mistake that I've been making for the longest time is I was just basically being coward, basically waiting for stuff to blow over, or, just like, um, as Curtis Joseph said, like there's this taboo that when you're a decent person, you try not to bring out drama. When you're an artist, you should just be producing the art. But this just works to a certain, this only works up to a point, like when you're minding your own business and the stuff that goes around about you just gets more ridiculous every month, then you gotta take some stand and say something and open that whole kind of worms, because it's not like if you pretend that the can of worms is not there that it will like disappear.
Hmm.
And a lot of the good people have been avoiding confrontation and the weeding out because they just don't like confrontation.
Hmm.
They just want to pour some white light and reconciliation and forgiveness over it, which is fine. And like it should be done whenever possible. Um, but just like when you cast a curse, the baneful energy will not always attach to the person. When you pour endless love and light on somebody and they are not receptive to this energy because they want to fight, because they want to create the destruction and chaos, it's also not going to work. So uh, you need to put on that armor, but with a proper understanding of the real spiritual fight that you are in, which is not a fight where brothers and sisters should be homicidal against each other. It's not even a fight of like right hand path versus left hand path. The way I would say it is, it's between those who believe in liberty and free will and sovereignty and those who just don't.
Hmm.
And there are people in the left hand path who just, through their own actions, like they're showing that they don't really stand up for people's, sovereignty and free speech and just basic freedom to be left the fuck alone and practicing in peace. I wake up every day and I have to battle off this paranoia, like how many of my spiritual peers, friends could have turned against me overnight. Is there people trying to convince them that I'm this horrible person who is out to get everybody's husband and their dog?
And they're done. Well, I mean, that brings about a lot of questions now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. One thing that I'm gonna say is black magicians, if they fight, should fight with black magic and not freaking shit it out pseudo legal letters or allegations of sexual harassment. That's lame. That means that your magic doesn't work. That means that you actually don't believe in magic and the spirits. That's what it says, actually. A lot of people on the left hand path don't actually, you know,
Hmm.
put their money where the mouth is.
Hmm. Again, like with Behemoth, he says the real fight for me is putting my 4-year-old to bed. Point. Choose what's important. And I mean, it's gotten to that point. It's gotten to that point that I mean, it's kind of like it's hard to kind of look at the community and feel that the community at large is something important. With everything that's going on inside of it. And the thing
It,
is,
it is it isn't, but it's what we need. You cannot have a left hand path without a community. This, none of us is an
Mhm,
island. We're human. We
mhm,
interact, we inspire each other, we learn from each other, we need each other. And that's why we need to clean house, because like a
I
total
agree.
implosion into privacy, it only works for a certain time.
Mhm. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And which is why I keep pushing what I'm pushing. Like now, I don't know the logistics of how it looks and how it's going to go over and how it's going to happen. And like you said earlier, there are going to be people that are afraid of confrontation and don't want to be involved on that level. I know, Mystic. I mean, you've told me that you're kind of on that kind of like side of things. You're willing to kind of put your best foot forward, but there's a limit to how deeply you would be involved.
Well, A,
And
because I'm not left hand path, you know. Um, but B, I'm not willing to express a certain degree of something that takes away from what I need to do for me.
mhm,
So I'm not willing to put things out like on a channel that's dedicated to a specific thing, or
exactly.
it's just not my style. It's not my way. But I think before
I'm not
anything
calling you
can,
out either. I'm just
yeah, no, it
Mhm.
just reminded me of a point too. For any of this to make any sense to anybody, people in this call, people in this chat, people that are and are not LHB, has to decide what we means, because we don't know yet. Nobody's defining we. Nobody understands what we is. And so that goes back to the idea of, who is um going out and making this. We've had conversations quite a bit, and the thing that always comes up for me is we cannot create other people to be the way we think they should be.
Oh no, we
We
have
right?
no power
Yeah,
whatsoever in over
exactly.
other people's actions. That's one of the basic truths in magic that people should really let that sink in. You cannot make them
Mhm.
the way you want them to be. Also means you cannot make them better if they are actually who they are.
Yeah, and they're not gonna there's so many people that, we probably well, I'm sure we could make a list of people we that you can identify, and what is the word? Everybody would agree on which list they were to fit on, uh, to say it nicely, but in order to move into a unified or a unity direction, we have to know what we means, and we have to know and believe that people are who they are and at their level, at their location, at their point in life, at their soul's journey, or whatever you want to call it. And I think one of the things that is interesting on both sides of the floor, we tend to ascribe where we think other people should be in order to perform in the army that we are creating, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it makes total sense. It's like,
Well, I don't like the word army though. Don't.
he
We're not.
doesn't like any reference to warfare. I get that. I totally get it. I would prefer if I wasn't making those references either.
I was
Just
in the army, so that's a word that works for me quite often. So,
Okay. Okay.
but army, it represents a group, a large group of people. But if you, whatever it is you're unifying, whatever you want to call it, a congregation, you like that better? I'm
Maybe a little
just,
bit. I don't know.
I think
uh,
Mystic is touching up on the old maxim that you should contemplate your enemy because they are
yeah.
essentially some mirror of yours and some aspect of yours. And I have found deep wisdom in this. Like literally uh some kind of strange telepathic resonance where people would like use the exact same words in, painting each other to a third person, and then the third person would come out and say, "Oh, you're enemies, but you describe each other using the exact same words to me. Isn't it fantastic?"
Yeah, and it's not just your enemies, it's the people that are on your side too. We alienate people all the time because we expect them to perform at a level, or we speak in a way that expects them to perform at a level of what our intentions are, not theirs. And that's really where it comes from for me. I have a friend of mine who's amazing. She teaches me all kinds of stuff. Been practicing for 50, probably 60 years. Um, it's an ally. She's an ally, full on, 100%. Because and I know, Malice, we've talked about some of the situations at the group that we call it our church group, but I mean it's not church specifically, but um, that person is never going to be somebody who's going to go and call somebody out or go stand up for somebody. She's pacifist ultimately, but that's still an ally that speaks for and can be a part of what we would call unification. Is such a terrible word. I hate it.
And
We
and you
gotta
know,
come up with something else.
some
But
some people inevitably
mm,
will seem to you or me as too pacifist, or at the other end of the spectrum, they pick fights too much. And I've got
mhm,
friends of both kinds. I'm like, yo, you're picking fights a bit too much. And yo, you're just acquiescing to everything too much.
mhm,
Hmm.
But I think that's actually good that we have the full spectrum because, if everybody was picking fights and then everybody else was just like trying to play it cool, there would be no middle ground. And the unification probably is also about finding this
mhm.
middle path, this middle ground.
Yeah, it's
Well, I think
stepping
that's
between
what's
making
missing.
movement and making no progress at all.
Well, I mean,
You're either gonna
that's kind of what's
stand
missing
still
everywhere.
or
Yeah. No,
jump.
I,
exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I I saw this cool meme online the other day which said, uh, roses are red, candles are lit, do no harm, but take no shit.
I like that. That's
Mhm.
good. That should also be a T-shirt. Uh,
We got a list of t-shirts, man. I need to write this stuff down.
I know, right? You need to start like kind of like jamming that shit out, right? Um, no, and I think one of the biggest things that's kind of missing is kind of like that whole middle ground. I mean, even like that like when I generally have like political discussions with people, like politically, I mean, that's starting what's kind
No,
of like what's missing
that's
politically
hopeless.
is a middle ground.
Politics are entirely hopeless at this point. Like you better just
Exactly. Agree.
give up.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're
I,
not going to
I
get
don't.
into it.
I gave up on expressing any political opinions. We'll just keep it to spirituality
Yep.
because I don't want to create any
Mm-hmm.
more division that is already out there. Like the professionals, the intel agencies, they are creating the division. That's their job. I won't be abetting them
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And I think within spirituality, we're kind of starting to kind of run into the same problem, though. Like
Yes.
we're losing the middle ground, and the middle ground is where people come together and have discussions, and discussions is important. So what's the most difficult part about kind of like a universal kind of unification of occultists, like in general, like not just left hand path, but everybody? The difficult aspect of this is the idea of unifying people under the idea of unification in and of itself, right? So generally speaking, there is a reason why governments and things like that or countries have enemies, right? It's easy for a very large community of people to unify against an enemy, which is why there's this mentality that an enemy needs to exist. I personally believe that an enemy does not necessarily need to exist. You don't need to have an enemy to unify, and we need in order to have people unify for unification's sake, we have to remove that idea. We have to
Oh,
remove the idea that you need an enemy to unify against.
but do you know who needs an enemy always? A totalitarian regime, which is perpetually in war
Mm-hmm.
with everybody else, and a cult. A cult always needs to be at war with somebody, the majority, those who have left, those who have betrayed. So it is these tendencies, I believe, that are like causing this phenomenon, and it's kind of part of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost say there's always going to be these tendencies. Um, it has just very recently entered this public consciousness that yes, we actually like have gurus and cults and cultish behavior on the left path, something that we thought would never exist because we are the lone wolves and we are the liberated ones, and yet like all evidence is pointing to the fact that like using these terms is not appropriate. It's not inappropriate at all. Like whenever you have witch hunts being called on people who have left the group, like calls for them to be blacklisted and
Mm-hmm.
banished, boycotted, and cancelled. That's very typical behavior of a cult, a group that relies on like extreme social cohesion. I guess like with gangs, it would be the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first thing that people need to learn within the occult, or need to relearn, is first and foremost, everybody does shit differently, right? So gatekeeping, that shit needs to stop. Like,
Oh,
people need to stop with
yes.
the gatekeeping. Like, just because you do something differently than somebody else doesn't mean that they do it wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're doing it right. So learn from the people that you can learn from everybody, take everything in, assimilate what it is that you believe that is, valid for you to assimilate into yourself, into your practice. But don't sit there and start calling people out. Well, they do it this way, and this way is wrong. There is no right or wrong way. It is what feels correct to you individually,
Oh, yeah,
spiritually.
absolutely. People need to be more encouraged in following their own noses and intuition. That's where it should basically
Mm-hmm.
what it should boil down to. It shouldn't be about name dropping. Like, come on. It's not like you trained under this person or you're following this author and you're part of the clique and
Mm-hmm.
you're with the cool kids or with the kids that are no longer cool, and
Mm-hmm.
then you are banished and blacklisted. Who gives a fuck? I get my gnosis directly from the spirits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
people seem to be like shocked to even like offended when I tell them I haven't read a book in a decade. I don't know how to name drop.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you how many people, like, every time, like, when I go live or when I upload a video or something like that, somebody inevitably comes into the chat and asks me, "So, what do you have you read the Goetta or whatever the fuck it's called?" It's like, no, I haven't. I have no idea what the fuck. Like, no, I don't know.
No, me neither. I have literally not ever opened the Goetia, and I have not read an occult book for quite possibly a decade, but I have spent countless hours in practice with other practitioners experimenting, just pushing forward or in communion with the spirits, doing the magic, doing the divination. And this is where the revival of the left hand path will come from. It will come directly from the people who are in contact with the current itself and the spirits, and it will flow through us back into the community, which has become sort of lost in its own antics. I actually,
Mm-hmm.
I'm becoming sort of maybe too rebellious myself because anytime I look up some authors, I'm already on the lookout for the bullshit. And I
Same here.
unfortunately always find it there because what you see is
Same here.
is like all these beginners flock to someone who is just like bashing them in the head, telling them, "Oh, you're not good enough. You haven't done this long enough. You don't have the shit. You're not the shit. You don't know what it takes." you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is horrible. Like, come on, these people are coming to the left-hand path because they feel the call, because they have done this in previous lifetimes. They just need to remember, they just need to replug themselves into the current. And here they find some gatekeeper who just like puts them on the lower, on the lower pedestal and keep themselves on the higher one. What does it even mean, practitioner of 20 years? Everybody says it, but how much have they really practiced? And I have
Mm-hmm.
conversely met a few young people in their 20s who were like, like I would bow to them very easily because they just have it. I don't know where they got it from, but I recognize that they have it. So just like with Wicca, where it turned into name dropping and occult order politics, we have sort of followed the same path, but in an even less dignified way.
Mm-hmm.
Weekends were much less into like cursing and trying to destroy each other. It had this facade of you know the proper lineage, the proper initiations, the proper name drop, the proper content.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, with the name dropping thing, like when we're talking about like name dropping either deities or entities and things like that, and the things that we work with. So, like I said earlier, um, the things that we're working with have existed way longer than we've been the fuck around, right? And have gone by so many different fucking names. Like what you think you know that it was called like 2,000 years ago doesn't really matter. Like like the name of whatever the fuck it is you're working with. The idea is, are you actually working with it? And like I hate to call them out, but like was one of the reasons why like I very much enjoy Behemoth's content, because when he starts going into something, he talks about working with an entity for fucking months, like or longer. Like he's not talking about like I'm gonna sit down, set up a fucking ritual, do a ritual for this one thing, this one time, and then boom, like wham bam, we're done. Like he's the first person that I've seen that I personally feel like inside their content that fucking gets it. It's about taking that time to actually work.
And that's why he's I believe was possibly the most popular left hand path YouTuber out there, maybe on par with Arlie Stewart. um people can sense the authenticity.
Yeah.
It's not about hiring a videographer. Anybody can do that if they really wanted it.
Hmm.
But even the art, it needs to be fueled by something real. It needs to come from somewhere, from the inside. That cannot be faked. You can buy all the promotion, all the likes, build all the hype, but like just as it is in music, you can only hype a band so far. If the juice is not there, it's not there.
Come on now, don't stop. um, no, you're right. Like, I mean, like when you have like that authentic, like, and I hate using that word because it makes it sound like a sales pitch, but it is what it is. You feel it like when somebody's actually doing what they're supposed to be doing instead of trying to sell something, right?
Oh yeah, well that's where the whole salesmanship and marketing slant got like so wrong, and many people like saw it from the beginning. But at the same time, we haven't tried it yet, so we haven't been immunized to it.
Mm-hmm.
To the degree that like New Age, the more right hand path spirituality has been incredibly commercialized for decades already. There's people freaking marketing $5,000 workshops and conferences easily.
Mm-hmm.
Easily. It's been out there forever. But the left hand path has always been so obscure and so like, marginal and in the shadows that uh, nobody basically dared putting it out there so
Mm-hmm.
much, and also like it used to be that sorcerers were kind of notoriously bad at business,
Mm-hmm.
so they couldn't even get it up and running for the most part, and that has changed, and I think that's cool. I'm actually an avid consumer of a lot of spiritual products and services.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say that, I'm subscribed to like 6 different monthly subscription witchcraft boxes, and I get all giddy when it comes home and there's
Oh yeah,
all
but
this
that's
wonderful stuff to smell.
nothing wrong with it. My mother does that shit.
Yeah.
Like from Etsy, she's got like three different
Oh,
fucking three different boxes that she gets like every month from Etsy. And like she can't like every time they come in, she starts saying me, "Oh, look what I got! Look what I got!" It's like, all right, cool. There's
well,
nothing wrong with that.
there's something very primal in that kind of joy, and in some ways this has changed for better, because like a decade ago, 15 years ago, it used to be considered unfathomable that the witch would go and purchase like love incense or a
Hmm.
spell kit, especially, or some kind of condition oil. You were supposed to make all this stuff yourself, all of your tools, all of your incense, collect all the spell ingredients.
Well, I mean,
Back then, the only people who would do this would be like the tourists, it would be like a tourist.
I think so. I think that that's part of kind of like the mentality that's kind of having like kind of like a negative impact though, because like practitioners, occultists have been selling shit since the beginning.
The dawn of time.
Yeah, like like we've been like all the way down to the healers, right? I mean, the true first doctors that understood that herbs had medicinal value, even though the church shunned it. You know, like we've been selling shit for fucking ever. Like so, like in endowed fucking candles and in whatever. We've been doing it since before any of us have been fucking even thought of, existing on this planet. Um, so there's nothing wrong with it. And like I said, just because I don't charge for shit doesn't mean others can't. I'm not saying people always seem to take that the wrong way. When I sit there and say that I don't charge for shit, that people feel like I'm stepping on their fucking toes. Like, well, I do, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
No, I've been on both sides of the proverbial fence, so it's very funny to actually experience. I used to charge a lot. I was actually like the celebrity psychic in my country back in Europe, like straight up late night TV talk shows, magazine covers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, people all the time would come out of the woodworks to criticize me for like selling out and betraying the craft and being a charlatan, fraud, all that stuff. Been there, done it, seen all the dark side of the fame.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm the housewife who literally gets an allowance and doesn't make any fucking money, is not selling anything at all. People can send me donations or gifts if they want to. And I have been trashed for that. Like, um,
Mm-hmm.
you will never please everybody, and money is the most divisive, most emotionally loaded topic out there. Period. So
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be a controversy that will always be alive, and I think I'm fine with that. I think I'm fine with that. And everybody is coming from like a different background, different different position. But people actually uh like right now jump at me for not charging for services, and they take it that I'm like demanding uh to be given something for free that I haven't earned, that I haven't provided them the service.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just a clusterfuck. Like, no, you're not never gonna make everybody happy. You know, um, and I guess it is what it is. Like, I mean, I've always said I don't give a shit what people think about me. I
Oh, you
really
should.
don't.
You shouldn't.
Um,
That's
and I never will.
spiritual practice number one. There is some
Mm-hmm.
school of yoga I've heard of, which basically their whole practice revolves around a total social suicide. Like there's a form of yoga where you swear that you will never tell a lie, not even like a white lie,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads to a complete social suicide of the person who signs on to this practice. Maybe that's something worth considering.
Yep. Trust me, I understand that one. Oh, I do. I kind of in the midst of that. Um, so yeah, no, I don't have a filter, and I refuse to have one. I just say what I think, and that's consequences be damned. Whatever's in my head is what comes out of my mouth. Um, which kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of not giving a shit what people think about me. I'm not here to make everybody else happy. Now, the way that I kind of, fucking, can we talk black magic now? um, I think, well, I think that's kind of like a step into that direction, isn't it? Like, kind of like not giving a shit what people think, like doing what feels right. Yeah.
Or even
Working with,
sometimes doing something that feels wrong, but you just want to do it anyway.
you know, so he said black metal. I thought he said black magic. My brain, man. I've been online today for over 12 hours. So it's like, wait, what? Black metal is good. But yeah, I mean, I think like starting out, like if you're going to, in my personal opinion, with the left hand path specifically, there has to be a sense inside of yourself of not caring what people think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you even like need to repress your own concerns for yourself and like your well-being and the losses that you might incur, because the losses are going to be tremendous. Tremendous.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. No, I mean the thing is like, I mean, so working with Baphomet. Um, yes, Baphomet is about balance, but in order to achieve balance, like a lot of things need to be taken out of you. You
And you
know,
you perhaps need to explore the extremities, you know. You need to try the both of the wrong paths to arrive at the third path that might be correct.
mm-hmm. And so another thing that I love, like this again, reiterating the point of not giving a shit what people think, is like I get a lot of shit for working with Baphomet.
That and that's just crazy to me. But I'm sure you appreciate it.
Everybody out there is talking about, fucking Azazel or Lucifer or Lilith or Belial or King Paimon or all of these names. I throw out, Baphomet, and it's almost like a laughing stock. They're like, it's like, just don't get it, do you?
No, and that's the whole name dropping thing, you know, like shouldn't it be about something else than being friends with the most popular kids in the class?
It should be about what works for you personally, and not, wait. Get his auto. Okay, I'm just reading chat. I'm trying to going through, right? Um. So, yeah, I think Baphomet gets so much shit because people look at Baphomet as kind of like the introductory offer of the left hand path, and then I think it's very
So much.
misconceived.
He's actually he is the doorway to both alchemies, the white
Yes,
alchemies and the black alchemies.
yes, like exactly. Like, well, there's again that thing that point of balance, but like balance can only be achieved and the toxicity is removed, and sometimes the toxicity is something that you don't want to remove from yourself. Something it's some most of the time it's something you don't even realize is toxic and is holding you back. And working with Baphomet for so long, I mean, I've gone through that. I've you know gone through you know drastic changes, in my life, reaching a point where, you know, I can feel that level of balance, like not just spiritually, but, you know, in myself, to be and have a level mind, to be able to, do what I'm doing and put out what I'm putting out, have to be on a level playing field, because
Oh,
I'm
absolutely. Because you
putting
know
my
what?
mhm.
If you didn't have it, what would happen to you is you would get like 1,000 subscribers, and then you would have an emotional meltdown online and block everybody and crawl away from your success because you couldn't take the heat because you haven't done the internal alchemies. So
Mhm.
you're preparing yourself for the big game.
Well, I'm putting myself in the middle. Like I'm essentially putting myself between everyone and everything.
And
And
that's a spiritual practice of its own. And I totally see how that's something that Baphomet would very much appreciate and encourage.
so,
He's actually close to me.
but it's good to hear. Not many people say that.
But I didn't choose him out of a catalog, We just started channeling spirits with my husband, and the way it started, it was basically you would pick up the phone and just see who is out there, and you would talk to all of these deities who would have all kinds of messages, offer us to work with us, introduce themselves, and some of them would like stick around a whole lot more than the others, and Baphomet is one of them. Probably has to do with him being a Templar
Hmm.
and having past lives and like ancestral connections to Templar mysteries.
Well, I mean, it's
So
funny that was how he chose his, I guess, essentially, like for lack of a better term, his resurrection. His return through that. That was a planned choice.
of course,
I mean, and also like one thing that I'm very sure of, and a lot of people are going to give me shit for this. A lot of you guys in the chat are going to give me shit for this. The sigil that we use for Baphomet is not the sigil of Baphomet. Inverted pentagram with the goat is not his sigil. But that's a story for another day. um, so the sigil of Baphomet that we use, for as lovely as it is, and I have it on my finger, I have it hanging behind me, I have it on my computer, was marketing. That's what that was. That was marketing. That was a graphic designer trying to come up with a logo. That that is a
but you know what?
logo.
Don't discount the power of a good logo.
No, I'm a designer. Trust me. No,
Oh yeah,
I'm a
so you
graphic
know that
designer.
they're
So
like it can be encoded as spells very easily.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Names,
Mm-hmm.
slogans, logos.
Mm-hmm. You know. So and I know that is an unpopular opinion. What I'm putting out there, and I'm not discounting its power. It has power. It has connection. It does bring connection to Baphomet, but it is not the sigil for Baphomet.
I was actually communing with a spirit that I will not name who told me that his true sigil has been unknown and lost. So they can give you their secret names and their secret sigils directly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But of course, if something has been used for centuries, then there will be some power to it just because of the currents and the egregores and the minds of people that have been flowing through it. There's like way more juice when you say the exorcism in Latin than when you say it in English or any other language.
Mm-hmm.
Just because these prayers have been spoken in Latin for, hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's that actually goes back to, so one of the bases of like my belief within the left hand path. So first and foremost, when you start to work with something, you have to fully understand what you're working with. And in order to understand what it is that you're working with, one, obviously part of it is working with it, yeah. And then the other aspect of it is understanding where it comes from. So we like to throw around the word demon a lot these days, right? It seems to be kind of like a big thing, right? Like we like to work with demons a lot. And the big thing here is like, so let's trace that back. Let's go back a little bit. Where does the word demon come from? Well, the word demon comes from ancient Greek, daemon, which is very different from the Judeo-Christian concept of what a demon is. And also the concept of possession comes from, the ancient Greek. It's actually Daimon. And so the daemon was an entity that Zeus would put into someone to help guide them to their success. People that he deemed worthy of true success and riches in their lives, that he would dictate who they would go to. That's what a daemon was. Angel also comes from ancient Greek, though I can't remember the exact pronunciation of the word. They're just messengers.
Yes,
They just
Angelo.
Thank you. They just brought messages to people from Zeus. Now, the idea of possession comes from that on a rare occasion, a very rare occasion, Zeus would deem someone upon their birth worthy of having a daemon with them from the beginning of their life. And that he would instill that daemon into that person from the beginning of their life to help them from that point on into their success from the very beginning of their existence on this planet. So this is where the word demon with the Judeo-Christians comes from. And my one issue that I do take with much of our beliefs, I'm not saying if to each their own, do as you feel is necessary. Like I said, new names for old entities, right? It's all the same thing in the same bag, essentially. But we have this habit of calling the Christians enemies and calling the Catholics enemies, but yet we fall right into that hand, and everything we do is just adversarial to Judeo-Christian belief.
And I think that's kind of outdated because let's look at it. They are on their last leg. They are not like a powerful force that is really shaping this world nowadays. That's
No,
an
not at
old,
all.
outdated. The enemy or the powers that be, they're concentrated elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is beating that horse, in my opinion. Like, okay, I don't like them. I was raised Catholic, but come on, that's beating a dead horse at this point.
Mm. It is. I mean, well, and the thing is that they're trying to cover their asses for 300,000 children that were taken advantage of, because it's YouTube and I can't use the very specific words. That were taken advantage of by what, upwards of 3,000 clergy members.
That's what a corrupt structure looks like. We should just take care that we don't create something on par with it.
And that is why what we're talking about, needs to happen before that happens. It's fun. It's nice to sit here and talk about, beautiful ideas and utopian concepts, but we need people that are going to be willing to put in the work. Not everybody's going to want to, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to want to be a part of something that what we're talking about, and that's perfectly fine. Many people are going to think that it's not even possible. You know what? It may not be possible, but I would prefer try and fail than to say that, oh, well, it's just never going to work, and never actually try. Because at least within trying, we may be able to reach some people that later on will actually be able to make it work through our mistakes, to be able
Oh
to see
yeah,
the
well,
mistakes that we
the
make.
next generation, that's very important. We shouldn't just be here for short term gain. We really should think about, like, how does this all play into the future. And I know that right now it looks almost like there ain't no future. World is burning.
Mm. There's
But
always
there
a
is going
future,
to
though.
be some world 3, 5 years from now. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is the decision point. Like, what new world is going to emerge out of all of this? What is the spiritual landscape going to be like?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fight that is actually like right now being decided. And it's
Mm-hmm.
about the change of guards as well. And I think that the right hand path is becoming less hypocritical and up their asses. And the left hand path needs to let go of some of those low level murderous instincts and
Mm-hmm.
less power wars.
Mm-hmm.
And we are on a good way to do that, and then we can come together, a bit more. There should be absolutely no shame for people working both hands. Absolutely not. Like, they are the true masters. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to make pacts and go full darkness, as it is probably easy to just follow the path of like exaltation and purity. But working both hands, that's how I see the true mastery, and that's why Baphomet is so underappreciated.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree. I
It's not
mean,
because it's a less important deity, but it's because you can master what he embodies.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, I mean, again, that whole balance, the whole idea of balance is like people like I said before, like I mean, a lot of like what you see online, at least right now, with a lot of people is work with this and work with that and get this and get that and ask for this and ask for that. It's like put the fucking time in. If you're really serious, put the fucking time in. Put the dedication. There's a reason it's called a dedication. Actually dedicate yourself to something.
Oh, devotion even.
Yeah.
Or if you are going to ask for something, um, I was actually forging a pact with Lucifer all over again, and he told me, um, I will know your worth by the things that you ask me for. Don't ask me for stupid shit. I don't want to see any little girl fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
Direct quote.
There you go. There you go. I've honestly never actually worked with Lucifer. Is he? Does he look as good as he does on the TV show? Sorry, I had
Um,
to.
yeah, well, to me personally, he's always looked like the Grim Reaper. So I'm just communing with a skeleton wearing a robe.
Oh
I
well,
was asking him if he could like take on different forms. Sometimes he does in dreams, but we have just settled on this because when I try to change it, it would just feel weird. He has a lot of masks, a lot of faces.
hmm
This is certainly the most. This is certainly not the most likable one, but he's got
hmm
many.
So how long? So let's talk a little bit here about you know like how you practice. So when you do kind of like a dedication or devotion to a particular entity, how long do you go? Like how long do you kind of like lifelong? Is it a few months? Is
It is a lifelong path. It just took some time to really settle into it. And actually, for me, the barrier and the biggest doubt has always been the community.
mm-hmm,
Always. I basically backed off from the left hand path at least once because of the social politics,
mm-hmm,
and once because of not being able to deal with the gravity of like the power that demons flat out offered to me, which was I felt like I don't have what it takes to make these kinds of decisions. Like, I would have demons randomly come to me and start offering me things and promising me things and pacts, which if I had taken them, I don't even know if I would have been able to live you know, with the results of my own actions. Some people seek baneful power, some people seek riches and dominion and whatever. I did not. And when demons started offering me to flat out take out people out of my path, and it was tempting. And even though I declined, those people did almost die a few months later, and I like had a horrible crisis of conscience, you know, because I was like wow, like this shit is real, like this power is real, but this is a bit too much, you know. I don't think I can take the gravity of this. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that I have, you know, the inner mastery or even just the maturity to be making such calls. So I did ask for a lot of those, let's say, stupid things or lower magic, and it worked. It worked for me perfectly. But here's the thing, it didn't bring me happiness. And some of those powers, if I had used them, I don't know if I would have been able to live with the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the first decade of the left hand path. And then came the second, and that came out of like more soul searching, actually a deep dive into my past lives where I had like remembered all the covens, orders, black lodges, all the priesthood. And that's where I saw that this is exactly who I am actually. This is me. This is my current. This is my home. That's where I belong to. I saw the ancient soul contracts, you know, the covenants. So my return basically to the left hand path um, came as a result of like a deeper understanding of my own soul history.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like I think that's kind of like where everybody kind of starts, though. Like, I mean, so like when you talk about like the lower magic, I mean, obviously, kind of like you know, when I all about like what I wanted to get out of everything, right? You know, like I wanted to make my life better. I wanted to, I don't know, fucking have a Xbox. It's shit like that.
And it's, you know, and I actually that's like that's perfectly acceptable. I mean that like promise of self improvement or empowerment in magic is legit, and we're freaking incarnated in 3D in bodies, so you know we can't just be all about internal alchemies and high mysticism. Then you get those people who notoriously cannot pay rent, but they have all the mystical powers, you know. There's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of those types too.
Yep. No, yeah. I mean, most definitely. I mean, it's you know, I mean, life has its ups and downs, right? And there's most of the time your physical mundane life will cross very smoothly with your spiritual life. Right? I think spirituality should be a day-to-day thing. I we did an episode on Wednesday, and we talked about the rituals in your day, the
Oh yeah,
routine. You know,
routines.
you
Perfect.
know, talking about, for example, clothing. Clothing is essentially a form of glamour. Like even though it's physical, it's still a form of glamour, and it's something that we use all the time, and it's how those things work for you and understanding the spiritual connection in those day-to-day routines and how to take advantage of those day-to-day routines, that you don't always have to be in front of the altar with the candles and the incense and things like that to have a spiritual connection.
Oh, of course not. That's actually that's the smallest part of my spiritual practice nowadays. And everybody who has done enough ritual probably agrees, you know, like there is a point where you move past ritual because the spirits, they just start talking to you directly, or you can commune with them. You start seeing the whole universe, everything that is evolving around you as a sign.
Mm-hmm.
You need to use tools and ceremonies. It just drops. Or the ritual is kept, but it's like stripped to the bare bones.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I have
Exactly.
way less ritual tools now that I have, you know, 5, 7, 10 years ago. I had entire collections of things which were beautiful. I mean, there was value in it of its own, but unless you're a collector, you don't need all that shit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm extremely jealous of Behemoth's ritual space. Like, That man's fucking, temple is like it give anybody a boner. That's into this shit, So, it is absolutely amazing. I mean, but what I work with and what I have works very well for me. Like, do I need something like what that man has? No. Would I like what he has? Fuck yeah. But it's one of the things that Mystic and I kind of talked about like a lot on this is that when we were kids and we started out with this, like we had enough imagination that drawing a pentacle or a pentagram on a piece of paper and sticking it on the wall was enough to give us focus, into something. And now like what happens is as adults, it kind of like we need something to kind of draw our focus a little bit harder. And I think we need to I think we need to reach in, and pull out the inner child a little bit more and use, that part of ourselves that has the imagination to connect through simplicity.
I'm just a Virgo. That's my problem.
I,
I blame it on
I'll have
that.
to
Period.
excuse myself.